things have really improved in the budgeting process. A few years ago, there was almost no consultation, no meetings held with Ministry of Finance, Planning Commission, and so on. But the last 2-3 years, things have really improved, and we have thought that we had a platform where we can make inputs and also get a sense of feedback from the Minister of Finance in terms of how things are going in terms of revenue collection, the global economic situation, and prospects for economic growth, and so on. So generally, the processes has improved. I think we have made also some proposals in terms of how it can be further improved. In terms of accommodation of our actual inputs, we hope there could be more accommodation. There are a few of our recommendations that has been taken up in the current financial year. One example we can mention is the increase in the housing budget, where after the finalization of the housing policy last year and launch this year, we've seen a substantial increase in the budget allocation. One of our biggest disappointments, of course, is the lack of implementation of a basic income grant, which we had proposed several years ago, which we have piloted, which is globally has been seen as a development intervention that is effective. So yes, we are happy that the process is opening up. There are a few of our inputs that has been taken up, but we still have a long way to go.
Now, civil society submissions on Namibia's national budget highlight pressing priorities that aim for a more equitable and inclusive financial framework. This, of course, amongst others, includes enhancing social protection. What is civil society's stance on the current safety nets for vulnerable groups like orphans and persons with disabilities, as well as pensioners? And what are also its effects on reducing poverty levels, would you say?
Yes, the current social safety nets, especially in the form of social grants, have proven to be very effective to those that are fortunate to have received them. And there are studies that has been done that proves that it has changed people's lives, not only changed, but even saved people's lives. Most of the grants have been used to provide food for households. So there is no doubt, especially the Universal Pension Fund has been so effective. In fact, it was on the basis of a review that was done by the National Statistics Agency about the impact of the social pension, the universal social grant for senior citizens, the impact that it has on household poverty. Based on those findings and the convictions, our late president almost doubled the pension, the old age pension. So it is very effective, especially when it's applied universally. The biggest challenge we have with our safety nets is that there is a vast majority of Namibians that needs support from our government, but that are excluded. For example, the child grant. There is so much bureaucracy in terms of processing that child grant. In fact, it's even easier to register as a voter in Namibia than to register as a beneficiary of the child grant. It's also no guarantee if you have applied that you will get, even if the child is vulnerable because of budget limitations and all kinds of requirements that are there. And we would have hoped that at least by now we would have a universal child grant so that we can save lives of innocent children that are dying of hunger because we have failed to support their parents and the households where they are living. So for those that are receiving, the impact is really heavy. For example, if you compare with the food bank that has now been converted into what is called some kind of a conditional basic income grant, which we have a problem with. That one is based on households. Now, if only one household member is receiving this and is supposed to share it with the biggest household, the impact diminishes, because some households in Namibia are quite large. On issues of, for example, health, we welcome the proposals for universal health coverage, and we urge government to move quickly to get a universal health coverage which does not look at people's incomes but on people's rights to health. And on issues such as early childhood education, only a small percentage of Namibian children receive early childhood education, and we would like a government to make resources available to churches and civil society, that is the facilities and the capacity that can contribute resources so that we could expand the provision of early childhood education in the country. So the safety net has been effective to those that have received it, and also where the amounts has been reasonable. The child grant amount has remained minimal, and its impact has also been very minimal.
Well, while you are on that topic of improved funding in education and in the health sectors, based on the realities on the ground, is it that the funds are not sufficient, or is it that the priorities are perhaps misplaced?
Well, that's another topic. I think how the funds are being utilized, it's a topic that needs to be investigated. But when you have 80 to 90% of the budget being spent on operational cost, and there is no new funding to improve, for example, social infrastructure and physical infrastructure, then you will continue to struggle. I mean, if you look at education and health budgets, a substantial amount of that goes to maintaining the operations, paying for salaries and other fixed operational costs. So you have little resources left to improve hospital facilities, to even to recruit new staff and so on is so limited, even if the demand is there, because of the limited budgets that these ministries are receiving. So, but we have made suggestions in terms of monitoring progress, having management processes that demands for accountability and for people to be held accountable, teachers, school management, and also people at the head offices of these ministries to be held accountable, so that they could deliver with the little resources that are available.
Now, let's take a look at civil society's emphasis on the transparency and accountability in the budget process. Of course, civil society urging the implementation of mechanisms that allow for public scrutiny on how funds are utilized. How transparent exactly would you say is the budget process from civil society's perspective, and what implementation mechanisms would civil society propose?
Yes, it's having worked several years on the national budget. It's still not clear to us where the final decision-making power is, where figures can really be drastically changed if needs be, except in the office of the minister. Even sometimes when we engage cabinet ministers, we get the feeling that when the budget has reached that level, it's almost a done deal. And then we have a balanced democratic system where different institutions are supposed to look at processes like the national budget, but our Parliament is really not involved in any substantive way in influencing the budget, other than maybe monitoring the efficient and effective implementation of the budget. But in terms of determining the figures and priorities and what amounts must be allocated, the executive decides that alone. And when it comes to Parliament, it's a done deal. It's, there are a number of public statements being made by members of Parliament, but this does not result in any substantial changes to the budget. So we would like to see a process where Parliament can also be used as a platform where citizens can make their inputs into the budgeting process. We have standing committees on public accounts and so on, and that could be used. But also, these platforms could also be used to monitor the implementation of the budget, to make sure that there is compliance and all those issues. We've also said that we would like the Minister of Finance and Public Enterprises and the Director General of the National Planning Commission to facilitate sectoral dialogues between churches and civil society, where we could also influence how the ministers of education, health, and so on prepare their budgets, that they have their priorities right, and that we can influence those processes. Because sometimes the minister says, but the ministries did not ask for this budget that you are saying must be included. So those sectoral dialogues would also be important in this conversation. And we think, although the process of opening up, a lot more can be done to make it more participatory and transparent.
Well, the civil society has also, of course, underscored the importance of public engagement in the budgeting process and advocating for consultations that reflect community needs and encourage greater civic participation in governance. From the related consultations that were held in 2023 and 2024, with the Ministry of Finance and National Planning Commission, what is the view of civil society, of course, on the input from all stakeholders? Would you say that it is fair?
Well, I think the Minister of Finance must be commended for making an effort to seek inputs from key stakeholders such as churches and civil society and others. And I think some of the weaknesses from our perspective as civil society is that when these consultations takes place, it's Windhoek based. It's only us in Windhoek that has this input. Some of our institutions have regional and local presence throughout the country, and we are during our work able to feedback and also get their inputs into the national budget processes. So when we speak to the minister, we're not just speaking from head officers, but also from inputs received. But it would have been good also that when the minister goes out to the regions and meet with regional political and administrative leaders, that civil society at those levels are also involved, and that other institutions, organized civil society, whether it's traditional authority, whether it's farmers organizations, youth and women's groups, and so on at the local grassroots level, can also participate in those exchanges. So from our side, also we have committed to make the process inclusive, so that we make sure that when we are consulted, all the key stakeholders from churches and civil society are around the table. So, and we, as I've said in the beginning, we have seen that this process is worth engaging in, and that we have seen some a slight acceptance of some of the inputs that we have made, and we will keep on pushing so that we can make sure that most of the inputs, the substantive inputs that we are making on the various issues, are taken seriously by the ministry and the planning commission when they are drawing up the budget.